This is week 10, and we are going to talk about the motion controls in the effect control panel. That includes position, scale, rotation, and anchor point. Last week we were using this Las Vegas scene, and if I wanted to know the size of the sequence that I'm working with, I could come up here to Sequence Settings, and I see here that it's 640 by 360, so it is a 16 by 9 size, so it's an HD size. And if I took this picture called Clock Desert and put it in this timeline, we see here that the Clock Desert was more of a standard def size at one point, so it doesn't exactly stretch out to the edge of the screen like the Las Vegas scene does. So let's try something else. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new sequence. So I'm going to say File, New, Sequence. By default it comes up here and it says DV NTSC standard 48 kilohertz. Okay, so I'm just going to use this standard size. So instead of a 16 by 9 size, which is 16 by 9 as far as the ratio of the HD screen, we're going to be now in a 4 by 3 size. Okay, let me take the Clock Desert and place it in this size. Well, okay, so it almost goes to the edge of the screen, but there's a lot above and below the screen. So if you have a clip or if you have a still that doesn't quite fill the screen and you want it to be filled, you would go up here to Effect Controls, open up Motion, and you would scale it up. So I'm going to click on it and move it to the right, and I'm making it a little bigger that way. Okay, the other thing I could have done is click inside the blue area and typed in, let's say 128 or 29, and it's filling the screen. So that's scale. Let's say, for instance, I wanted to get rid of these bicycle riders on the right side. So I could position this, moving it to the left and to the right. Okay, and I see here that I have enough still that I could move those bicycle riders off the screen. So let's say if I wanted them back, I could do it that way too. You could also go up and down, but we see here that the still isn't large enough to fill the screen. So if I zoomed way in and moved that up and down, I could do that and have more sky or have more ground. So that's scale and position. Position moves it left and right and also up and down. Those are the two number values. The scale makes it bigger or smaller. And then we have rotate. Well, we see here that the edge of the desert looks a little bit crooked. Now, if you are shooting things that have a flat horizon line, such as the ocean, if your tripod isn't perfectly straight, it may be a little bit crooked. Well, don't worry about that because you could always come and you could rotate it. So, for instance, I'm going to rotate by only 1 degree, and I see here that kind of fixes it. I can't quite tell that it's off. You know, you could adjust it more. You can rotate things around that way. You could also rotate -1 degree. So obviously that's not what we want. So I will go back to 1. So these controls, scale, rotate, and position, even though they can be animated and they're really fun to use, by default, the most use you get out of them is just position, scale, and rotate without animation. So in this case, again, my desert just by 1 degree was off. Now, if you rotate something, let's say by that much, you could see that now the edge of the screen is being cut off. So you need to actually make it larger. So a rule of thumb is for every degree I rotate, in this case I rotated 5 degrees, let's go back to 1 degree, I need to scale it up by 3. So for instance, if I had a typical rotation off by 1 degree, I would type in 103 in the scale so I don't see the edge of the screen.